This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
The blood washed away, but the guilt never does. Welcome to Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, featuring psychotherapist and author Siobhan Scott.
I'm Tony Brueski, and as we continue to unravel the growing list of allegations against Sean Diddy Combs, the gravity of the situation only deepens. What began as a handful of lawsuits has now swelled into a tidal wave of accusations, many of which involved acts that go far beyond the bounds of anything imaginable. Some of these claims strike at the very core of familial ties and the complex psychology of denial, particularly when it comes to those closest to Diddy, his own children. Imagine being a child or even an adult forced to reconcile the image of a loving, protective parent with a growing mountain of evidence pointing towards that same parent's alleged crimes. For years, they've lived in a world where Diddy was the constant, a larger-than-life figure who, despite the ups and downs, was always there. Now, with these allegations, they face a truth that could shatter their entire reality. How do you process the possibility that your father, someone you've trusted and idolized, could have committed such acts so heinous that they defy comprehension? As the civil suits pile up and the ages of the alleged victims continue to be known, more and more questions arise. Today, we're delving into the psychological toll of those caught in the storm, exploring how denial and normalization can become powerful defense mechanisms when the reality of the allegations finally confronts them. If irrefutable evidence were to emerge, how do they cope? Let's explore the darker side of what happens when the people we trust the most are accused of unimaginable crimes. Joining me to do just that, Siobhan Scott, psychotherapist and author. Thank you for joining us. And those kids, you know, they're behind dad. I can't. That's almost like that's way too much to, I think, to even fathom trying to wrap your mind around that. Yeah, mom's dead. I think they've accepted. I mean, from what we can tell, I'm not speaking for them, but I think from what we understand, they've accepted mom died of a disease. And that's what it was. And Diddy was the one that was still there. Obviously, he's not anymore. But to understand that maybe your mom knew a bunch of horrible things that were going on, was actually trying to protect you or save you before she got offed. Again, just pure speculation. Not accusing anyone of murder, but it's worth looking into. That's a lot to take on as a kid or an adult child.
Yeah, and so often you see that with children of people who have committed horrible crimes is that, kids and spouses often, they just can't believe it. And it's the denial that they need to keep going to not lose their whole vision of the family they thought they had and the parent they thought they had. And the sense of, what does this say about me?
Yeah.
If I'm, this person, I'm a part of this person and I've integrated them into my very being and they just can't see this. I always say it's like a negative hallucination, not seeing what's right in front of you.
Well, I mean, yes, very much so. And it challenges their own identity, everything they thought they knew about themselves based on what was the building blocks for them. I
100%.
mean, when you work with somebody who's been through something horrible, where one of the parents is dead because of the actions of the other parent, and the other parent is still, they've never done anything to violate the children. They've always been there, but they got rid of the other one for their own selfish purposes, and they can't wrap their minds around this. Is it what is the healthy route for something like that? Is it to eventually come to terms with reality, or is it more, let's let you live in your own world, as long as it doesn't get to delusions and affecting other people? Is it healthier to have some sort of view of the surviving parent in a good light, even if in fact their actions took the life of the other one?
Yeah, I always lean in favor of reality as, a better choice that serves us ultimately. But I think you have to help people look at a parent through a prism, and it's almost like, you can hold two realities at the same time. It's difficult, but I think that's probably the healthier choice, is that yes, this parent was good to you, and so you can hold on to that and keep those good memories, but at the same time realize that this person could have been an absolute villain to other people. And how do you hold both those things?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time and a lot of support, but yeah, I lean toward reality is better than denial.
And a lot of mental gymnastics if you're going to go down the road. I mean, either way is a lot of mental gymnastics, but if you're going to continue to hold one of them in higher regard, even though they shouldn't be, that's a lot to take on. I mean, whether it's this situation or any, I mean, let's just, for example, say one of these videos does come out, and it's irrefutable. It's Diddy. It's dad to some people. And again, all conjecture, all just hypothetical. Let's say there's a video that does come out, if it exists, and it shows him doing horrible things with people. I'm not going to say kids, whatever, horrible things, illegal, horrible things. And it's there. Is that enough to make the kids go, okay, this is enough. We saw it now. And because I know in some cases it's not. And then you just like, how are you still going? Tell me about that. The denial of reality that's right in front of you. How does a mind go through those gymnastics to discredit just pure fact that's not even like questionable? It's pure, it's right there. How does someone walk around that and go, nah, I'm not going to take that one in?
Yeah, we see it a lot, and it's one of those things. I go back to, these defense mechanisms are just intransigent. They work well for people in the sense of, I can go on and feel good about my life because all this other stuff isn't true. And we see it over and over and over again. We see it in politics. You see it with celebrities. You see it in dysfunctional families where people just hold on to that denial. And, ultimately, do they get through life feeling better? Maybe in some ways, but I sure don't think it's a healthy way to live.
Do people who've been through more trauma have an easier task at doing that, of being able to kind of block some things away and say, I'm not going to take this as reality, versus people who've led a less traumatic life and have had less things happen to them that were less to the extremes? I'm not saying the kids of Diddy had a lot of trauma, but they've had a lot of huge ups and a lot of huge downs, very high, very lows. Which in itself could be traumatic, not necessarily abuse from dad or something, but up and down. Those larger extreme shifts, does that make it easier to accept something like that than it would otherwise?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, a really good point. We do know that some people respond to, and as you say, extreme shifts. We can look at that as a form of trauma. It's very unsettling. And some people do develop those defense mechanisms where it's like, I just don't see it. I just don't experience it. It's almost like a form of dissociation where they disconnect from unpleasant realities.
Well, and I guess part of the question would be too, even though the rest of the world and society will look at these claims and the facts as they come out as being horrific, if in fact they do prove out to be, is there a normalization that maybe went on there in that house that everyone else is seeing these things as horrible, but this was just another Saturday night in Diddyland? Like, what do you mean this is wrong? This is weird. He's been doing this since I can remember.
Yeah. I think that's certainly what you see with his mother. We've talked a bit about her in the past. And the normalization is another part of the process that goes with denial and the inability to see things that are aberrant and strange and bizarre. And people who grow up in those circumstances, they get really good at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's your take on the fact that, I mean, some of the kids, some of the boys, I mean, do have charges pending on them and civil cases against them. There's a lot of accusations there that some of them, pretty much followed in dad's footsteps. Whether it's true or not, that's up for debate yet and will be seen by the trial. But if you're going in your father's footsteps at a very young age, and it's a very dark path, Yeah, I can imagine you don't necessarily see anything wrong with that path that you've been on.
Yeah, it's like a culture. That just occurred to me. When you live in a culture where certain things are just the way it's always done, kids grow up incorporating it, and families have cultures too.
Yeah.
And that's set by the parents. The parents determine the family culture.
Culture and cult.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Very similar.
If that is your culture, and then that is also how a lot of cults can continue to grow. I mean, I'm not calling all religions cults, but that is how a lot of culty type religions can grow, because bring the children in and let's feed them the storyline.
Exactly.
And then that's all they know growing up. And and there's something that's innate about that. It's home, it's friendly, it's warm, it's fuzzy, even if it's horrible. And that's a hard one to break away from.
Yeah, 100%. It just becomes the way our brains are wired, and we don't ever question. And that's the insidious thing about the cult mentality.
Yeah, it's going to be continue to be fascinating, as of course more allegations will likely be coming down. But there we go. That's the latest on Diddy for the week.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
You're neck deep in a dark, twisted tale, and just as the tension peaks, bam, a commercial about some miracle diet pill breaks the spell. It's like finding a fly in your soup after the first bite. But here's the fix. True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. You get to enjoy your crime stories without the junk. Ad-free episodes, extended interviews that go beyond the surface, and early access to all the gruesome details. It's like swapping out a can of cheap beer for a glass of fine whiskey. So search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe and keep the darkness flowing uninterrupted.